In an ever-changing world, Life Changes Network presents a voice of truth and inspiration, broadcasting on frequencies of love, light, and information, illuminating new paths for new directions as we, as one, strive for higher and higher planes of existence and a better understanding of ourselves and the world in which we live. Always remembering, life changes. This is radio like you've never felt before. This is Life Changes with Filippo, with tonight's special guest, Tracy Bartram, founder of Serious Laughter. And now your host, our MC, the master of change, Filippo Voltaggio.
Thank you so much, Mark, and ciao, everyone. I am excited to have Tracy Bartram on the show today. I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to tell you a lot more about her in just a little bit. But I got to spend the weekend with some very special people that I love and enjoy. And, you know, it being with them made me think of something. They have an absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, big house. It is quite beautiful, and inside looks like it's been decorated by an interior designer. It was actually done by the lady of the house, actually, but the inside is just so impeccable, and everything is in its perfect place. I've always loved model homes, as an example, so I've always looked at that. I've always gone to see model homes decorated, and then would go home and decorate the houses wherever I was living, like I would see in the model homes. I would use that as a blueprint of what I wanted in my surrounding. And so this beautiful house that I got to spend some time in with these beautiful people this weekend reminded me of a model home, because everything was perfect and everything was in its perfect place, including things that you wouldn't expect to be in certain places. And I'm talking about a big wheel, if you know what that is, or a toy truck, some plastic horses, some dolls, some puzzles, a little plastic barn, some games, some musical instruments. They too were in perfect places, even when perhaps to an interior designer's eye, or to my old eyes, I should say, might not have seemed like they belonged. So in this great living room where the drapes and the sofa, I mean, everything is exquisite. There was a big wheel. In its orange plastic color and red and all of that, and there was a toy truck right next to it, as if it belonged in a really, really special way. And so it made me think of when I did love and adore going to see model homes and loving how perfect they are in the way that they are decorated. So I would go and see these perfectly decorated homes, and then go home and decorate my place wherever I was living at the time, exactly the way I would see them. And it had to stay that way. I would use a toothbrush or whatever, or use a dish, and it would have to go in the dishwasher. I couldn't leave it in the counter. Even if I'd have to rush to work, I would have to put it away, because the house that I lived in had to look like a model home. And everything had to be in its exact place. Everything had to be perfect. And so even when I had guests coming to visit me, I would probably drive them crazy, because they would inevitably leave something out in the bathroom that they probably thought would be fine to leave out, and they would use again. But I would find a nice drawer for that to go into, because after all, they would be spending 2 days there maybe, and it needed to be in a drawer so that it wouldn't be on the counter, because then it would no longer look like a model home. It would no longer look perfect. And the interesting thing is that my homes never looked lived in. And a lot of people loved my home every time they came over, but they did not feel comfortable in any of my homes. It became an analogy for my life. I started to see that on the outside, my life looked perfect. To the eyes of many people, I looked like I was the happiest person, doing exactly what I wanted to be doing, dressing like I wanted, looking sharp, feeling sharp, going to where I wanted to go and all that. Kind of like my home looked like a model home. But inside, the truth of what was making me act the way I was acting, I was hiding, I was a wreck, I hated myself, I hated what I was doing, and my life was missing its soul. And in so many ways, my model homes were missing their soul. And people were feeling that, or feeling the lack of that, those who could sense it. And it's interesting to have spent this weekend in a beautiful home that was perfect in so many ways, and yet there was a soul that was also in the home that happens to come from two little children who leave toys and dolls and trucks and puzzles and games here and there. It's not messy at all. It's actually quite beautiful. And so now, as I look at my life and I look at, again, people are seeing what I do and where I go and the people I meet with and the pictures I get taken with this person and that person. People think, oh, what a perfect life. Well, I'm glad they think that. I don't necessarily think that I have a perfect life, but at least my soul is in my life now. My soul is with me when I go to events that I actually do want to go to, that I actually meet with people that I do want to meet with. And my home, it's still very neat and very model-esque looking, but there are elements that show that I have lived, that I am living, and that my soul lives in my home. I think our guest today, Tracy Bartram, I think that would resonate with her a lot. I'd like to hear her side of that when we come back, because she is certainly living her life and living in her life in a really special way nowadays. And to all the eyes and ears that heard her and saw her for years, people thought she had it going on, and she did. But now she has it even more going on. And I'm so glad that she's joining us so she could talk about that. We have Tracy Bartram coming on the show as soon as we come back right after this.
Clean water is not enough. Reverse osmosis, distilled water, and most bottled waters are devoid of naturally occurring minerals. They are acidic, unstructured, and hard to absorb and rob minerals from the body. IonWay's ionizers produce a superabundant supply of powerful antioxidants in each glass. Ionized water has a reduced molecular cluster size and a negative charge, hydrating you up to 6 times better. Water from an IonWay's ionizer will help you restore your body to its natural pH balance, boosting your vitality. And ionized water more effectively flushes acidic toxins from within your body. Drink the healthiest water available today. IonWay's water systems, their water changes everything. To learn more about IonWay's water systems and how you can own one today, visit our website at lifechangeswithfilippo.com and click on our sponsor page. You are listening to Life Changes with Filippo on the BBS Radio Network with your host, Filippo Voltaggio. You can visit us online via Twitter and Facebook, and at lifechangeswithfilippo.com. That's Filippo, Filippo.
Well, we're back, and as I promised, our guest is Tracy Bartram, and she is a highly successful comedian, a broadcaster, a keynote speaker, an author, a singer. Actually, she's even so much more than that. She is the mother of a teenager with special needs. She is also a recovering and totally sober addict in every area of her life. She's going to share with us her story, and in her sharing, she will share the methods she has implemented to move through the agony of pain to surface as a whole funny person, actually. She is, in fact, the founder of Serious Laughter. Tracy, welcome to Life Changes with Filippo.
Oh, Filippo, I don't know whether to say g'day, mate, or come stai bella, Filippo Voltaggio.
Well, I didn't understand any of that, so it doesn't matter what you say. I love it anyway.
Oh, shut up. And I have to tell you, I'm laughing at this end because it's Tuesday midday here in Melbourne, Australia, and I've just had a meeting. I told you I was kicking one of my colleagues out of her office so that we could do this call. But I've got some exciting news before we start talking about what we want to talk about, because I said to you I'm working with a group called Theatrica, and my meeting was with them this morning, and they organise tours for Australians to come to America, and we've just set a date for when I'm coming back. So I'll be in New York City from the 15th of September to the 23rd of September this year. So we'll be bringing people over, and we have plans to come and do an LA tour, so don't feel hurt. But what excites me is that I will be back in New York around the time of our spring solstice, which is the spring equinox, which will be your fall equinox, which is a really powerful time. So I've just been there and with you on that side of the world for our fall equinox. So, I'm coming back 6 months later when it's a really powerful time. So that's thrilling for me.
That is very special, and I'm glad you're coming back. And if you're in New York during that time, I might just have to find myself in New York during that time as well.
Yeah, you will. And all the details will be on my website. So we'll mention that at the end of this chat, I'm sure.
I'm sure we'll mention that and so much more. I'm looking at the picture of your smiling face on our website here, and it's interesting. You have brought smiles to many people. In America, you're not as known, although you are known. I told you the story of being in a club the other day and mentioning your name, and somebody spitting up their drink saying, "Oh my God, you know Tracy Bartram." And I was happy to say that I do. So in Australia, tell us a little bit about what you were so hugely famous for, and happily so.
Well, it's really interesting. My performing career started as a result of my losing my job. I was a sales rep for Diners Club, which is an American credit card company. Mm-hmm. And I did a personal development course because I couldn't get another job. That was 21 years ago, and it was based on meditation and creating what you want and flower essences and kinesiology and all that hippie esoteric stuff that's still hippie and esoteric, but it's become much more mainstream, and you can now claim kinesiology on your health insurance here. And I made a decision at that point to become a stand-up comedian. So that was 21 years ago. And so I just toured, doing stand-up, and then I got picked up to do a radio show in Perth, which is on the west coast of Australia. And I was working with a guy who had been doing radio for many years, and I didn't know anything about radio apart from the fact that when I was touring and talking about my own shows, I was always booked to be on people's shows because I made them laugh. And so I got a job with him. He offered me a gig, and I did that for 3 years. And then I got bored. I've got a really low boredom threshold. And I was ready to come back to Melbourne, which is on the east coast. So there's Melbourne and Sydney, and there's as much rivalry between Melbourne and Sydney as there is between LA and New York. And seriously. And so Melbourne's where I've spent most of my time. And so I was poached by a radio station, and that station went to number one, and we had a breakfast show called Tracy and Matt in the Morning, and it was the most successful breakfast radio show in Melbourne's history. And I did that for 6 years, and then I got sober, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I knew that I had to put my recovery first, and so I left that job, and I was the highest paid broadcaster in Victoria, which is, you've got 52 states, we've got 5 and a territory. But we know we're much smaller than you, but landmass we're sort of pretty big. And I was paid incredibly well to do that show, and it was highly successful. But I was listening to you talking about your soul and how important it was for your soul to be fed in your work, and my soul wasn't being fed, so I felt spiritually empty. I felt really barren. And so I quit that job at the height of its popularity, and I jumped into the abyss of nothingness, of not knowing. I mean, I had work lined up, but nowhere near the money that I was earning. And retreated.
Hold on, Tracy. Before we dive into your abyss, let's talk about you being still at your job that was so successful. It's interesting. You were saying your soul was not in it, and yet you were making people laugh. You were the highlight of people's day. I mean, in doing my research about you as well, I came across a lady who said that there were times where she had to pull over while she was driving in the morning because she was afraid she would get into a car accident because she was laughing so much.
Isn't that great? I love that.
Things that you would say. I love that story. Absolutely.
I love it too.
Yeah. And that's you. And so you had to have you had to be connected in some way in order to be able to affect millions, literally millions of people that way. You had to be connected. You just you weren't there to be aware of it or something, right? How would we describe that?
Well, I think what happens, I think we're all given gifts from God, and and I hate using the G word, it upsets people, but I'm a 12-stepper, and it's just much easier than saying higher power. It is. It's just, and it can just mean good orderly direction. It doesn't really matter, but I believe that we are spirit beings having a physical experience, and not the other way around. And in answer to what you said, I mean, I think we all come into this world with talents that have nothing to do with us, that they are God-given, and I've always been able to make people laugh, and I'm really grateful for that. And I have to say, there's nothing more extraordinary, and I've been performing for 21 years, but to hear 1,000 people laugh at once is like a tsunami, but in a really good way, because I'm just careful of using that word with the current climate.
Right.
But seriously, it's, it's just this wave of energy. To see people rocking in their seats is just extraordinary. I think what happened for me was that I was missing seeing that live, because when you're doing radio, you don't know who's laughing until you meet someone who says. I nearly had to pull over because, I was laughing so much. I think my connectedness to the audience, I think, was the fact that I'm a bit, I hate to use the Howard Stern in this context, because I know that he's on his own spiritual journey, but, he's insane. But he's always been authentic, but I've never really liked the gimmicky part of radio. I've never liked the whole, the stunt thing. I just don't like that. I don't like the fact that listeners are used as fodder for ratings, when seriously, if you're delivering good radio, people will always listen. They don't need to be bribed by stupid stunts or offers of cash, or they don't. People will listen because they're connecting and they're feeling, they're resonating with something. And so, I even in all the radio work I've done, my whole intention has always been to get a message through while they're laughing, and because people will retain it. People will always laugh. They'll remember they'll remember resonating and connecting, but they'll remember it even more when they're feeling good at the same time. So, and I look, I'm just one of these people. I remember working with one guy who said to me, "You've just got this comedy cloud that follows you around, haven't you?" And I said, I don't write material. It just happens to me. Seriously, I've never written a line of comedy in my life, Filippo. I've never sat down. Yes, I have. I've written debates and things, for performances, and I've written shows. But the stuff that makes me laugh the most is the stuff that just happens. For example, I went to this really snooty art show opening maybe a week ago. It was just after I got back from the States, and I was still jet lagged and I was a bit cranky. And I was talking to the woman who put together the show, and she said, "So tell me, did you meet any nice blokes overseas?" I said, "Yeah, well, I met this guy Filippo." Anyway.
If this is a story I think you're going to tell, I don't know if I want to hear it.
No, it's good. No, I just threw that in to upset you. But anyway, I said, "No, seriously, men are terrified of me." And she said, "Yeah, they're terrified of me." With that, these two women came over to join us, and they were, they're both probably in their 70s, and a bit, not the happiest looking women. And so they came into our conversation, and I said, we were introduced, and I could tell that they weren't fans of mine straight away, right? Because I'm, in this country, I'm well known. So I said, "Oh, we were just talking about men and how they're scared of us." And I said, I live by the theory that men are really good. I said, I've had a couple of husbands, and I said, and they're okay, but they're only really good for two things, and the other one's throwing out the rubbish, right, or the trash. And these women gave me nothing, right, because it was just a throwaway comment, but I ploughed on because I wanted to get a laugh. So I said, and you know what? I live by the theory that a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle, and they still gave me nothing. And, you could hear the tumbleweeds, right? So
you plowed on because you're a sadomasochist, not because you wanted the laugh.
I wanted the laugh anyway. I got nothing from them. And then the woman said to me, look, Dame Elizabeth Murdoch's here, and this is Rupert Murdoch's mother, right? And she's actually the good part of that Murdoch family, because we know what he's done to your country. And she said, look, Dame Elizabeth's here. Would you go over and have, just make sure that she's comfortable? And as the women walked off, she looked at me and she said, Tracy, both of those women are recently widowed. And I've just been going, a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. And I just roared laughing. And I said, oh, how recently? And she said, 2 years. I said, oh, look, they would have been over it by now and spent the money. Get over it. Now, the thing is, those women looked at me as if I'd stepped in something. But the point is, I actually don't care, because people are so caught up in being serious. And in the end, okay, people die regularly. In fact, there's a really good chance it's going to happen to you and me. But if we go through life going...
Hopefully not on radio.
Well, hopefully not, although, I've had some great breaking news when I've been on air. I mean, Michael Jackson died while I was on radio, and so did Kerry Packer, who was this huge media mogul. It's like every time I'm on radio, someone dies and it ruins the whole show. But you know what? I just think... I think one of the reasons I was, my radio career was so successful is that I just don't care about people getting caught up in, but he died. Yeah, well, so what? We're all going to die. And okay, I can be sensitive, but if someone died, a year ago, well, you should be able to make a joke about it at some point, because why wouldn't you?
And as far as you're concerned, that point is a year. At a year, that's the point.
No, I probably like a week. I don't know. Look, I'll give you an example. When my father fell off the perch, okay, and I was really cross with him because I said, I want to be there, right? I really want to be there when you go, because he had a terminal brain tumour and there was nothing that could be done, and he was a falling down drunk. He died at 69, and he didn't live his life the way he could have, and I think he died in the end because he had nothing left to live for. And so anyway. When he died, I said to my stepmother, my wicked stepmonster, as I called her, I said, wow, Dad's died on the 8th of the 8th, 2006, which adds up to another 8. And my wedding anniversary was the 8th of the 8th. And I said, I can't believe that, one, he's died on my wedding anniversary. And I said, but secondly, the 8th of the 8th, 2006 is a portal. It's an 8 and 8 and an 8. What an interesting day to leave his physical form. And she didn't say much, and I'm thinking, she's probably not up for a chat, because he wasn't even cold at that point. And so we're making a cup of tea and I'm having a cigarette.
You are so respectful. First of all, fell off the perch. Does that mean that
Popped
he passed?
Yeah, went to God. Fell off the perch. Yeah.
Okay, so what happened then?
Yeah, well, I'm not Italian. I don't have to wear black for the rest of my life, although I live in Melbourne and we live in black.
So the body wasn't cold.
Body wasn't cold. And so I'm outside having a ciggy and having a cup of tea, and she said to me, you know that your grandmother died on all fours. Well, I went straight into this hideous vision of her with my grandfather, thinking, why is she telling me something so yucky? And I said, what, her and Granddad? And she said, no, she died on the 4th of the 4th, 44. Now, you can't tell me. I couldn't have written that. It turned out that my friend Megan's laughing here in the background. I couldn't have written that, because in the end it took 69 years for that dirty joke to reach me after my dad died. Seriously. And not even a blood relative. So when people ask me, why do I do comedy? It's because it just comes to me, I think that the best thing in the world is having a good laugh. I just think there's nothing better. And seriously, I laugh more than I have sex. So I've got to say that the best thing in the world is having a good laugh, because, what else is, you just got to make the most of everything. You can't wallow. And, I've been to the dark night of the soul. I've been in the pits of despair. We all have. But in the end, you've got to be able to go, come on, what's going on here? I've got to be able to work through this. this, and you have to do the work. No one can do it for you. You actually have to decide that you're going to go within, connect with your higher power, get on your knees, and surrender and say, I have to get through this, whatever it is. Because if you think you can do it yourself, if you think you can recover from your addictions and your neuroses, we've all got them, but addictions, I think everyone's addicted, and I think everyone's codependent. That's my theory. And if you don't want to work through that stuff, you think you can control it. And most people think that they can do it themselves. That's your ego. You've actually got to hand it over and go, you know what, I'm powerless. And step one of any 12-step program is we came to believe we were powerless over alcohol or gambling or cigarettes or love, and that our lives had become unmanageable. And for me, with my addictions, my life became unmanageable, and it's been a long, long schlep to get through it, but now I'm shiny. I'm really shiny, and I'm really happy.
Well, you're shining, and I'm glad you're shining on the show with us, and you have gotten to the funny. And you remind me of a comedian that told me once that she was of Jewish heritage, and she said, Filippo, think about it. You're Italian, you get this. Those of us who are Jewish, the Italians, the Black Americans, those who have had tragedies in their life that have had to laugh in order to live is where the funny comes. And actually, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we dive into Tracy's abyss and learn how she got to the funny through the past the agony and the pain of her life. So when we come back, Tracy Bartram, everybody, looking forward to it.
There are self-help seminars costing thousands of dollars guaranteeing miraculous transformations. There are compelling speakers and life-changing weekend experiences where you can walk on fire. They all deliver revelations that guarantee you'll come back for the more expensive revelations filled with even greater wonder next month on Fiji. We get addicted to positive, heartfelt, expensive theater. What we really need is a jumpstart, an awakening. Someone who can give us a reminder that everything we need lies within. Through inspiration and practical knowledge, Dorothy Donahue helps people get grounded and motivated, inspired and energized. It's not just words and affirmations and the power of intention. It's a mindset brought about by a tangible, transcendental experience, an audio-visual, physical, spiritual experience that helps us realize we transform ourselves. We get tools to become the conscious co-creators of lives of unlimited potential. Find out more. Go to DorothyDonahue.com.
You are listening to Life Changes with Filippo on the BBS Radio Network with our host, Filippo Voltaggio. You can hear tonight's show and all our past shows, which include luminaries such as David Wilcock, Mariel Hemingway, Giorgio Tsoukalos, Marcy Shimoff, and Shadow Stevens on our archive page at our website at lifechangeswithfilippo.com. That's Filippo, Filippo.com. Remember, you can also connect with us via Twitter and Facebook, and now in our own community at lifechangesnetwork.com, where real people come together to share real life in real time. That's lifechangesnetwork.com.
Well, we're back with Tracy Bartram, and I want to remind everybody that our guest is traveling throughout the world doing funny stuff and sharing her life, as in how she came through the agony of pain to surface as a whole person, and she does it through comedy, and she does it through being not only a successful comedian, but a broadcaster, a keynote speaker, an author, a singer. So you can learn more about her by going to tracybartram.com.au, and that's Tracy Bartram, BARTRAM.com. A as in apple, U as in under.
And there's no E in Tracy because people stick an E in and they won't find me. And you can find me on Facebook as well.
I didn't put an E in Tracy.
No, you didn't, but a lot of people do. I'm an E-free girl, seriously.
An E-free girl. You're free of a lot of things, and actually that's why I'm excited that we're having this conversation. You came through, you say, I can't make this stuff up, and I can't write this, and it all just happens to your life. The thing that a lot of people don't understand is that I happen to know a lot of comedians, and I love them because a lot of them have been extremely depressed in their life, and they have had to look at themselves, look at the world from that state, and find something funny, find something to get them to the other side of it. And in a sense, that's what you've done, Tracy.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. I mean, my parents were so insane when I was growing up. They were totally codependent. My dad was a drunk, and they would beat each other up. But I'd be there, this little kid, watching this go on. And one of the funniest things is that we had overhead cupboards in our kitchen, and my parents kept leaving them open, and they kept clocking their heads on the door. And my parents would turn and go, "Don't you laugh, don't you laugh," and I'd be biting my tongue so that I wouldn't laugh. I mean, try to stop laughing when you want to wet your pants. I mean, I love that sort of laughter. But you have to go, if I don't laugh, I'll cry. And if I cry, I'm going to go crazy. So, yeah, I think you have to plow through it. And I really believe that, the universe never gives us more than we can handle. And so it's our choice to either work through our stuff and find out what the lessons are, or we can carry around this big bag of BS and just say, "Oh, poor me, this keeps happening." And then we bore people to death with how terrible our lives are, when in actual fact, we can't see the wood for the trees. People say, "I haven't got any money." And I go, "Yeah, but look at the abundance in your life. Look at where you're living. Look at the quality of life that you have. And, you just got a car park and someone gave you a free coffee and you're really abundant, and we just don't look at it that way." So I reckon that's, the whole world has to do a 12-step program for Lipo, and then everything will be okay.
Well, Tracy, I hope you get as famous in America as you were in Australia, or more so, because what you have started to do with your fame and with your success is that you are actually sharing your true story of being an addict and having the issues that you had and have had. And so people can say, well, if she can be honest about who she is, and if she can come through it in front of the world like this, then I could certainly do it. And in your position, you have actually gotten to meet and interview and get to know certain celebrities. And I know you have stories about a lot of them, but a few of them are finally starting to do what you're doing here. I know Kristen Davis did. Is that right? She inspired you in a way?
Yeah, Kristen Davis played Charlotte in Sex and the City. Right. And she was coming out to do something for the network I was working at the time. And I did a lot of research on her. And like any alcoholic, I can give you a list of famous people who don't drink. So, there's Robin Williams, and there's Billy Connolly, and there's Ben Affleck, and there's Madonna. So we're always fascinated with people who don't drink. We don't know what else they're doing with their lives, but if they're not drinking, it's some way of going, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And I discovered by reading up about Kristen Davis that she didn't drink alcohol and that she used to run a yoga school. And I'm really big into yoga too. So it was interesting just to look at the drama that surrounded her trip because, in the end, I had to fly to Sydney to see her, which is only an hour, but it's, it was a day out of my life because she couldn't possibly fit in the interview in Melbourne, but she was coming to Melbourne the same day, so go figure. But I could see, some diva stuff going on. However, I'm grateful that I met her, and it's not necessarily about her, it's generally about the people who are around them, and, you'd know that with the people that you meet who are high profile, that quite often the star attraction is really down to earth, but the people who are around them are getting their jollies from being around these people, and it's endowing them with power that they don't really have of their own. So they endow themselves with, I'm really important, which is just really sad. Anyway, back to the story. Right. I had to meet her, and I had a one-on-one interview with her, which was a national interview, and it was an exclusive one-on-one interview with her at the height of Sex and the City's popularity, because it was a massive show here. And I don't know how big it was in the States, but huge here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I still think it stands up as a really great show. And anyway, so I said to her, because I had decided I was on a liver cleanse because my alcoholism was not only constant, but I would binge drink, and then I'd go on to a liver cleanse for 3 weeks so that my body could recover. And so everyone thought I was this hippie freak, which I am, but, with a dark secret that, I was drinking alcohol and smoking pot. And anyway, I said to her, can you, I've got some green tea. Oh, I'd love a green tea. So we got chatting over that. And I said, look, I read that you used to be a yoga teacher. And she said, yeah, and we talked about that. And I said, and you don't drink alcohol. Is there a reason? And she said, oh, yeah. Well, I had to make a decision between my career and alcohol, because I'd wake up in the morning and I wouldn't know where my car was. I'd have these blackouts, and my dad would say, "Oh, honey, where's your car?" And I'm looking at it thinking, my God, I was totally relating here. And she said, "So now I've been sober for 13 years. Now only alcoholics use the S word, sober." And I said, "So what are you saying?" And she said, "Well, I'm an alcoholic." And so I had a visceral response to that. Here I am sitting there with this huge, huge star, and she's looking me in the eye saying, "I'm an alcoholic." And I put my hand on my heart, and I looked at her, and I mouthed at her. I mean, the mics were on, and I just mouthed at her, "Me too." And I felt something shift, and I knew I had to do something about it, but I didn't know how. But the interesting thing that happened next was there was this banging, crashing, and I looked up to see her manager slamming the doors open from the studio next door and slamming into our soundproof studio. And he said, "You got to stop talking about this. Turn the microphones off." And he was really angry.
Wow.
And she said, "Why?" He said, "You can't talk about this stuff." And she said, "I can talk about whatever I want. And if I want to talk about being an alcoholic, then that's going to help someone, and I'm going to do it." And all of this was recorded.
Wow.
And we turned the mics off at all, and we kept all of it in, and it went to air because it was a pre-recorded interview, and it went to air that day nationally. She was fine with it going to air, because what I understand now is alcoholics who have recovered are very, very happy to share their story. Alcoholics who are not recovered are still too full of toxic shame to talk about it, and fair enough, because we can really only talk about it when we can be a shining example of recovery. But if we keep falling off the wagon and we keep drinking and we keep turning to other drugs, we can't be an example. So she was a pivotal point for me. It was extraordinary to actually have that conversation, a privilege to have that conversation one-on-one with her. And it still took me 3 months after that to stop drinking. And when I stopped drinking, I started smoking pot. And then I stopped smoking pot, and then I started with the tobacco. And then I fell into an eating disorder. And then I fell into love addiction. So I've done 12-step work around all of those things to the point where, I can stand before God and anybody and say, I'm clean and sober. And I go to AA meetings and I see people standing at the front inhaling cigarettes like their life depended on it, and I think, you poor thing, when you get off those things, then you're going to start feeling alive, because cigarettes are just as bad. We're just pushing down all our emotions down. But when we're really clean, oh my God, you've got to feel everything. And I've got to tell you, it's confronting when you're used to living your life anaesthetised,
Exactly.
But she had a profound effect upon me, and I'm really grateful.
That's interesting. You're right. At the top of the show, I was talking about living in a home that looked like a model home, and that there was nothing in sight that looked like I lived in it. And
Yes.
and I wonder if that has something to do with not wanting people to know about who I really am. If I leave out this kind of toothbrush or this kind of magazine or what have you, people will know more about me, and kind of like, which is an addictive behavior as well, which is kind of like you were saying, if people knew that you were an alcoholic, or if people, you were hiding all of that from the world, and in a way yourself as well.
Well, I was hiding it from millions of people. I mean, seriously. I mean, I was hiding it from myself. I mean, I knew I had a problem with alcohol, but I just didn't know what to do about it. And interestingly, I had a meeting yesterday with a woman who's involved with a philanthropic group that's headed up by an American woman called Tracy Bartram. And she has already given away something like $750 million of her own private wealth. And I had this meeting yesterday to say, part of my personal charter is to talk to women and girls, because boys tend to listen to sports stars, but to actually say, hey, this happened to me. Alcoholism it's an illness. It's a spiritual malady. It's not your fault. And this is what happens when you go to a 12-step meeting. This is what you can expect, because people are so frightened of actually going in case they're judged or they're asked to sign a piece of paper, or that, they think it's an Amway meeting. People are frightened, and I'm frightened of Amway. But it's that whole thing of, if I can just explain to people the beauty of recovery, but not from an evangelical way. It's a case of, admitting it to ourselves first is the first step. Admitting that we have a problem, that we are powerless over whatever the substance is. cigarettes are the hardest things to give up. And my understanding is that, and scientifically, is that it's harder to give up cigarettes than heroin, because anyone will give you a cigarette. Anyone, you can, but heroin, you've actually got to pay for it. But the whole nature of addiction, what I find is you clear up one and then you've got to deal with another one and then you've got to deal with another one. But you know what? You get to the point where they're all lifted when you surrender, and then you can go, now I know what I can do with my life. So I was scared. I was really scared that if I stopped drinking, I wouldn't be funny anymore. What I've discovered is, I can still be funny, but I just have a lot more time because I'm not spending my time in bars and spending all my money on alcohol. I've actually got better things to do with my life, and also accepting that, because I really think, and we discussed this when I was with you in LA, I really think the biggest problem that we have as a global community, if you look at the success of Facebook and Twitter and all these other social networking sites, we are so desperately scared of loneliness. We are so frightened of loneliness that we'll do anything to push down those feelings. So we anesthetize ourselves with cigarettes, drugs, other drugs, alcohol, food, eating disorders. I mean, seriously, eating disorders. I became a compulsive overeater after my father died, and I put on 20 kilos, which is, I don't know what that is. It's either 40 pounds or 10 pounds. I can't remember, but it's a lot. And I don't understand your system because we've been metric for a long time here.
It's okay, we don't understand yours.
But it's a lot. It's 20 kilos would be 40 packets of butter. And, so that's all gone from my hips, because you put weight on around your hips because it protects your nether regions and stops you being intimate with people. I mean, metaphysics is very, very simple. If you want to look at someone, you just look at someone's physicality, and wherever they're storing the fat, that's what they're trying to protect.
Yeah, but you look great, and you shine in so many ways. And there is something that I know you're still but you used to be addicted to that we haven't talked about yet. And I'd like to touch on it for just a minute. When we come back, we'll have a couple more minutes. We'll touch on that, and then we'll thank you for being on with us, because this has been so much fun already. We'll be right back with Tracy Bartram.
Life Changes with Filippo is a premier radio show presented by Life Changes Network, which is a company whose team has dedicated their lives not only to positive change, but to helping others observe and embrace, honor, and even celebrate their own changes, thus enabling a more positive, inspired life and helping to create a more positive and inspired world. From everyday people to corporate giants, celebrities, and children, we are here to help and to serve. With heart and experience, we bring our message and positive intent into your home or corporate office, and even through appearances on your favorite shows. If you wish to learn more about Life Changes life coaching and a private consultation with one of us, corporate event appearances, or if you would like us to appear on your radio or TV shows, visit lifechangeswithfilippo.com and click on our representation page. You are listening to Life Changes with Filippo on the BBS Radio Network with your host, Filippo Voltaggio. You can visit us online via Twitter and Facebook and at lifechangeswithfilippo.com. That's Filippo, Filippo.
Yo. Okay, so we're back with Tracy Bartram, evidently, is how you pronounce her name. I hear I've been pronouncing it wrong my whole life that I've known her. And she's never corrected me. And this is how she corrected me. She said, by the way, I love how you mispronounce my name. So I don't know how to take that, but it's pronounced Bartram. But no matter how you pronounce it, you can go to her website at tracybartram.com.au, and that's Tracy without an E, Tracy, Bartram, BARTRAM.com.A as an apple, U as an under. And so, Tracy, we just have a couple more minutes here before we end our great interview, but you were saying how people are addicted to or afraid of loneliness, or what was it that you were saying that's why we're on Facebook and all that stuff?
Well, I do think that, the social networking sites are amazing because, I mean, we can hook up. You and I can send messages to each other every day, and there's Skype, and there's things that we could do that 10 years ago just weren't even humanly just possible. You just couldn't use it.
Right.
But I think the loneliness is the thing that people are the most afraid of, which is why they spend hours and hours on Facebook rather than actually, going over to see a friend or, walking their dog and maybe having a conversation with someone in the park,
Right.
Because
And the funny thing is that people feel lonely even though they could be in the park and there could be lots of people there, or they could be at a party and still feel lonely. And the interesting thing that I found that I felt that you might have been addicted to was finding somebody that didn't approve. Here were millions of people that laughed at what you were saying, and yet you seemed at one point, I remember you sharing a story, to focus on one person who did not laugh, and that bothered you.
Well, yeah, like any performer will tell you that, when you're in a theatre and you look down, you can have a full house. You could have 2,000 people who have paid their money and they're sitting there and they're really expectant and they're happy little bunnies waiting for you to come out and make them laugh. But there will be two house seats where you've given them to two really important friends of yours and they haven't shown up. And so what you do is you focus on the fact that those bastards didn't show, rather than let's talk to the other 1,498 people who are here. Right. And I had a really interesting experience with a wonderful teacher called Dr. John DeMartini, and I know that your audience will be aware of him.
Yes, we know him well.
Yeah, beautiful man, and we've been friends for years now, and we try and hook up every time he's in Australia. In fact, when I was in New York, he was here, so that's just wrong. But anyway, he does a thing called the breakthrough experience, and I just left a network, and I was really angry. I'd left because I just didn't get along with the guy that I worked with, and a friend of mine gave me a copy of John DeMartini's book, The Breakthrough Experience, and I got about 3 pages in and thought, I need to do this. I know that there's a course, and I literally got on the internet straight away, found out he was coming to Australia in 4 days' time, in Toowoomba, which is where we've just had the floods, and Toowoomba's actually disappeared. It's not there anymore. But we've had feast and famine here in the last few years in this country, and and I knew his wife, his late wife, Athena Starwoman, who was one of the best astrologers in the world, and I wrote to her and said, I have to do this, I've got to come, and it was all sorted, and we arrived, and I spent 2 days with John DeMartini doing Breakthrough, and one of his processes is that you have to pick the person who pisses you off the most and process it, break it down. He's got a quantum collapse technique that I'm sure you've done it, and it takes all the charge out of this person who's annoying you, because of course whoever is pissing you off, it's always about you. It's not about them. It's about your own stuff that you're not owning. Exactly. And so I was really angry with my ex-partner, my on-air partner, because, he just really annoyed me. And so we went through the process, and he said to me, let's pick someone out of the room that reminds you of him. So I picked the fattest guy just because this guy had a weight problem. So I thought, even in my recovery, I'm going to pick on him. That's just what we do in our sickness. And so he said, okay, you've resolved all of this. Is there anything that you want to say to him? And I said, well, yeah, thanks very much, for working with me. And you taught me a lot about radio, and you actually made me a better presenter. And I'm really grateful for all of that. And you're very talented. And I said all the things from my heart that I wanted to say. And then he said, okay, if he was on his deathbed, is there anything you would say to him? And I said, yeah, there is. And I said, I worked with you for 6 years and you never, ever laughed at anything I said. And it really hurt me. And so John DeMartini looked at me and he said, so that one guy didn't laugh? And I said, yeah, he didn't laugh. And he said, yeah, well, I've done my research, Tracy, and my guesstimation is that, there were 3 million other people laughing every morning.
And I've been laughing throughout this whole show. But no, that wasn't important to you. We seem to find in our lives, when we are in our addictions, the people that show us or that feed that addiction. Isn't that right, Tracy?
That's right. And that's why we attract the wrong people to us, so that we can learn that we don't need those people.
But look, you've attracted me now, so your life is going to be perfect from now on. So you are doing really well. We have to run, but I am so glad we had this time to play and to laugh and to chat. And I know we will have many, many more thousands of hours of fun together.
Me too. It was great, Felipe. Thank you so much, and thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Looking forward to it. Tracy Bartram, everyone. Thank you. Ciao.
Ciao, bello.
Ciao. Mark, I loved hearing her speak Italian at the beginning and now here at the end with her Australian accent. That was a treat.
That's right. What a great discussion. She's certainly a wonderful personality.
Yeah, and you know the interesting thing about her. Well, there are a lot of interesting things about her, but she seems to live her life right up front. You know, it's right here, and you see what you get, and she gives you what she has, and it's a great example of a great way to be.
Well, I think that's one of the things that she was speaking on, as well as once you deal with those addictions and the idea of an addiction, you know, in our culture is limited. People talk about certain things that are kind of common addictions, but the reality is we can be addicted to sleeping in the morning. We can be addicted to anything. We're chemical beings, and addictions are habits. And as she was saying, a hiding from the truth or hiding from the authenticity. And the minute you step forth and are able to live as your true self, you're authentic, and it's evident, certainly evident in the way that she speaks and the way she brings that laughter healing to everyone.
Right. You know, you're absolutely right about this addiction thing, and this thing at the end where we talked about we look for the people that feed that addiction. We look for the situations, and we say, well, it was right there, or I couldn't avoid it. And it's like, no, you know. And so it's interesting here. There were 3 million people that were laughing, or however many more, that were laughing at what she was saying, but she cared about that one person, that she let that get to her. And it's not serving.
And it won't. It doesn't serve until you get to the heart of the matter, until you get to that issue. Because if it's if you overcome one addiction, but yet haven't dealt with the core issue, you're going to find something else to replace it.
Yeah, you know, it reminds me of, you know, we've talked about this many times, and I know Dorothy Donahue, our producer, has helped me with this as well, because it's come up recently, and I thought I was over it. But my father, who used to say, you can't sing, he was the only person that has ever said that. And I have had, at this point, literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people tell me or show me from standing ovations or what have you. And yet I will often recall the days and the moments and verbatim when my father told me that I couldn't sing. And I would repeat that story. And I need to stop, because it's no longer a part of the reality. You'd think that it was... that it's like if you mix one drop of something and a million drops of something else, that it would diffuse or dissipate or go away.
Yeah, but the reality is that it's different. You know, that's the slightest change could make the biggest difference.
Yeah. Great. But the reality is, like Tracy says, if you if you look at it, delve into it, like delve into the abyss, and see who you are and be who you are, and then look for the funny. I love that, because, you know, the comedians that are the most funniest aren't the ones that funny things happen to them. It's the ones that probably the most tragic things happen to them, and they make it that funny. So in order to find that much funny, they have to do a lot of soul searching. So I don't, you know, these people that say, oh yeah, well, things come easy to them, or things, you know, come funny to them. No, they make them funny. They make them easy.
Well, and oftentimes, you know, you hear about many comedians, and they bring the funny, but they're bringing it in their own self-defense. And to have been able to cross that chasm as Tracy has, and still bring the funny, but do it in an authentic way where you're not protecting yourself or hiding from a pain or whatever the case may be, that's a pretty cool place to live.
Yeah. Yeah, this feels good all the way around. Being our authentic selves and being able to, that's the other thing, being able to laugh, at ourselves. And like she said, whether it's a week or a year, one should stop mourning after a certain time. What a lesson there to say, at some point we need to start laughing at ourselves, enjoying whatever we just experienced, no matter what.
Laughter is underused and I think undervalued in many ways. I had a friend that had been diagnosed with cancer and immediately went out and bought every kind of DVD that she could find of old comedies and sat and watched these old comedies for hours and hours and hours and quickly and successfully overcame that cancer. And it always made me wonder, why we don't incorporate this into our lives, much more powerfully and much more often.
Excellent. And that's why I say I hope and I trust that Tracy is going to become as famous as she was in Australia, if not more so, because she's bringing these lessons through humor. And this is something that we all need to learn how to do, to find the humor in our lives. So I'm grateful to Tracy for helping us get to the funny. And so with that, I am Filippo Voltaggio, and together with my co-host Mark Lejour and our producer Dorothy Lee Donahue and our engineer Seth Hendricks, we are so grateful that you were all part of the show and that you are part of the change that we all wish to see in the world. Ciao, everyone.
You have been listening to Life Changes with Filippo with the Master of Change, Filippo Voltaggio. Listen live every Monday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the BBS Radio Network and visit us online at lifechangeswithfilippo.com. That's Filippo, Filippo. Today's show has been made possible in part by our sponsors, Ionways Water Systems, Change Your Water, Change Your Life, and Love and Miracles with Dorothy Lee Donahue. To learn more about them, visit the sponsor page of our website. Once again, join us here next week as we consciously explore and embrace the only constant, life changes. Now's the time.